We are live. Good morning. Heidi Oropesa with Florida You Judge and with my co-host, my regular co-host, Tetulio Gonzalez Moliteri. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm ready to go. I had my cafe con leche. Said good morning to my maker. And so we're gonna have two judicial candidates who are running in Pinellas County. We just had one on momentarily. She fell off because okay, no, she's back. Okay, I'll be with you just in a minute. Cece. So it is 10 a.m. Right on. I think this is the first time in a long time that I've been right on time without no glitches or technical difficulties. Yes, Getulio?
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you a couple of seconds because you said you wanted to go grab the link to
yeah.
share
I'm
on your
I'm
page.
handling
And
that right now.
so this is important, and I've taken some time to bring on two very good candidates I personally know and have interacted with for years. And so I think I have a pretty good gauge as because of my interaction with them that they are qualified and would be good selections by the electorate to serve in the on the county bench. Okay, so I'm gonna bring on CC. Hi, and her that's what her nickname is, CC Clementine Conde, and good
Yes.
morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you this morning? Yeah, you're ready
Very
to go.
well. I'm ready to go.
You're ready to go. So, um, hold on. I'm a jack of all trades here with doing a bunch of stuff. Have a bunch of balls in the air.
Right.
Give me 1 second to take this overlay off. Okay. So, Candy's gonna or Candy. I'm thinking of tea and conversation with Candy Lo and Good Morning. She did share that with her, um, um, one of her pages with her political activism. So Clementine Conde, good morning. You are running for Pasco County, a county seat, Judge Group 4.
Yes.
Okay, and so I wanted to have you on for at least 15 minutes. You can call live for those of you who are watching now live. You can call the and I'm gonna just go ahead and have the things scroll on the bottom. The call-in number is 813-221-9700. You can call if you have any questions for her now while we're live. You can later on in the comment section ask her questions, and I'm sure her committee will interact with questions that she can answer. Let's go ahead and I wanted to do this. I wanted it to be a little bit informative because I spoke to Hitulio. He was going to co-host with me. I asked him to, and he was super amped about doing so. I'm gonna share because a lot of times the public, when they go to forums, and I'm sure you've encountered this, CC, where sometimes the public is at a loss to understand. Well, I'm asking these questions. Why can't I get an answer? And it's because you're governed by a judicial canon 7. Yes.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you learned about what can and can't be said, Hitulio, yesterday on based on that canon?
Yeah. Just the cliff notes is we have to keep it nonpartisan uh, and not so much issue based, but speak to the candidates' experiences and their character.
Well,
That
go.
that's what they're running on.
It says, and then I have that on the screen. Let me see if I could put this. It's Judicial Canon 7, and it says a judge shall not, with respect to parties or classes of parties, cases, controversies, or issues likely to come before the court, make pledges, promises, or commitments that are inconsistent with the impartial performance of the adjudicative duties of the office. That's online for anyone that would like to go in and review that. What happened here?
Thanks.
I don't know how that happened. Okay, so fairness. That's what the electorate should be looking at as far as that is a quality that's necessary with judges. Why do you want to
Impartiality.
be a judge? You've been a lawyer now for at least 20 years.
30.
30, look at that. 30. Okay, so Why after 30 years did you decide, you know what, I think I want to be a judge?
Well, I think it's important for a person who's on the bench to have a number of years' experience. I'm a much better person, I think, in terms of the law, or much more knowledgeable at 30 years than I was at 10 years, 20 years. I think experience is very necessary to be a judge. For me, it's the timing. I raised a family. I was a working lawyer for many years, or a working family person. My son is in his first year of college, and this is the time that I have to devote to being on the bench. A lot of people have known me, have known that I've wanted to be a judge. I've been a mentor to some sitting judges now. So this was the path that I wanted to take. It was just the timing. And I've always been a person of the opinion that you should have a lot of experience as a litigator in court, as a lawyer, before you take the bench. So this is the time for me, I think, that I can give my wisdom, if you will, back to the people of Pasco County. All of the knowledge that I've learned over the years. And I think I would be a good jurist because of that.
Listen, you've been a mentor. That's incredible to some sitting judges. You want to add anything or ask anything about that, Julio? That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, mentorship is always important. I'm, you know me, Haiti. I just want to get a better understanding of the candidate and
Okay.
what type of judge they would be.
L-
So
Let
here's
me
a
ask
question.
this. Let me ask this.
Okay,
See, and I'll let you jump on real quickly. But I did.
okay.
Do you? I did before you did ask that. I want to know. Can I call you Cece? Can I
Yes.
call you Cece? Okay. So you have a practice in both criminal and civil. Yes.
Yes, I have.
Okay. Go ahead, Getulio.
Okay. So as an attorney or as a student, what kind of jobs or interests or volunteer activities did you pursue while you were in school or going to law school?
I had a hard time hearing the question, but if I could repeat it back to you, hopefully I heard it correctly.
Okay.
What kind of things was I involved in as a student in law school?
No,
Yeah.
I guess
No?
before going to law
Okay.
school, while in law
Oh,
Well,
school.
okay.
well, both. Like, what type of volunteer activities or what type of interests or internship did you pursue, or externships did you pursue while you were
Oh,
in
sure.
undergrad and in law school?
Well, when I was an undergrad, I did work study. I was not a person of wealth, if you will, so I did have to take out loans, and I did do work study. And I worked actually for the faculty secretaries in the law school at University of Miami, and that's sort of where I got my interest in the law. I found that so fascinating working with the professors there to learn about the law. So I was pretty busy between that and studying to have any, outside activities, to be honest with you. Um, in law school, though, I interned at the Disability Law Clinic up in Massachusetts. I went to law school at Western New England University, which is up in Springfield, Massachusetts. And I really loved that internship, and I chose that specifically because it dealt with, people who had challenges in life, and that sort of shaped my career because I represent a lot of people, especially in criminal court, who have many challenges in life. And they really need someone to stand up for them and to fight for them. And I saw that in my internship because we represented people that were in mental hospitals. And we also, I assisted the attorneys who did the Baker Acts. They didn't call it Baker Acts in Massachusetts, but it was the equivalent to what is called the Baker Act in Florida. So that sort of gauged, like I said, my wanting to represent people, and sort of being that kind of lawyer that has an interest in people and their lives, and that guided me. So it was very impactful for me.
Okay, this is what I do want to ask because you, as you already know, I began to conduct judicial surveys around 2014, 2015. One of the things after
Hmm.
being a lawyer for several years, I wanted to do that because I had encountered judges which I thought demeanor is something that I thought that they can be better at. First of all, I want to ask you, you know about the judicial surveys, like a couple of years ago that we started, and we're gonna
Yes.
do again soon. What do you think about that? And before you answer, the judicial surveys that we did send out to the attorneys that decided that they wanted to participate, one of the categories, there were 5 categories. One of them was demeanor. Can you speak to that? And what do you
Oh,
think about, what is
absolutely.
your opinion of
You know,
the survey and demeanor?
I feel that, the demeanor of the court is so important so that people feel confident in the judicial system. For example, I go into many courtrooms for 30 years, and I practice in many jurisdictions, not just Pasco, although that is the bulk of my practice. And people don't feel that they're being heard when you have a judge up there condescending to people, berating lawyers. It really creates an appearance, at least, that the judge is biased, that the judge is not being fair. And that is not what you want to instill in the public. As a judge, you want to make sure that you conduct your courtroom with an even keeled demeanor to everybody, and then there's no indicia of partiality to one side or the other. Um, and that's so paramount. That's so important. I know people say it a lot, judicial demeanor, and I hear it, from clients. They come out of court and they're like, that judge was so mean. That judge didn't listen to me. That judge was not fair to me. Um, it really it doesn't instill confidence in the public when the judge is um, acting in such a fashion that it doesn't look like justice is being served in that courtroom. And I can assure you and guarantee you, in my courtroom, I have a very even demeanor. I've had the same demeanor for 30 years. A lot of people know me, and that will not change. When I get on the bench, it will be the same demeanor that I have exhibited through my career for 30 years, that I will have the same demeanor on the bench and make sure everybody's heard and has a fair chance to present their case without a feeling that they're being discriminated against for whatever reason.
Haiti, I
And,
actually like to build off that question.
and before you do, I just wanted to say that I can vouch for what she just said because I have interacted with Cece for several years, and that I've never seen you upset, mad, irritated. You've and like me, I'm a little emotional, so like passionate girl. Sometimes I do get a little bit irritated. But you always even keel. Oh, I've never seen you with a bad day. Like, oh, or that, that I walk away with an impression like, wow, that was rude, or she was not very nice. So so go ahead, build off of what she just said. And before, again, you do just as to add to what Cece said, when people go into court as a litigant, as a party, defendant, plaintiff, they are super, for the most part, if I can say as a lawyer, my clients are super stressed out, even with traffic tickets. They're scared.
Right.
And you're thinking, wow, this is just a civil citation for a traffic infraction. And they're freaking out. They're scared that they're going to go to jail, that what's going to happen financially. Judges address um, traffic tickets that can impact their license, their ability to drive, high fines. What if they're financially strapped? Um, whether they go to jail, with circuit judges, whether they get the death penalty, or um, family matters, child custody, just a slew of things that impact their lives, and they're scared. Demeanor is important.
Yeah.
I'm going to go real quickly. The categories on the judicial survey, and candidate David Moran is waiting in the way. And good morning, David. We'll have you on shortly. Preparation for motions and hearings, punctuality and diligence, freedom from bias. As Cece said, it's very important that when you go in there, you know that this judge is going to be neutral regardless of their personal views or perspective. They're going to follow the law and application of the law, preparedness, that they're actually going to not want to rush a case. Let's talk about that. Rushing a case. Sometimes I feel a judge is more concerned about the finality of a case rather than have the person being thoroughly heard.
That was actually my question, Haiti. Can I go
Yeah.
ahead?
Oh, sorry,
All
sorry.
right.
Go,
Well,
go.
Ms. Conde, if you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective lawyer, how would you handle the situation?
Give me a second. Give me a second.
Yes,
We have a
yeah,
caller.
I
Give me a
didn't hear you because the screen froze, I think.
Okay. If
Yeah,
you
so I
observed
didn't
a
hear it. Is there
party,
a question? Go ahead.
yes. Can you hear me now?
She froze. Okay, so we do have a caller. She'll come back on. Eliseo, good morning. How are you?
I am well. Life is a wonderful journey, and I am so happy to be able to hear the judicial candidates to be able to show me and tell me who they are. That's so important because that is the one vote that I do, which I have to admit that I am the most ignorant about.
Clementine Conde fell off, and so we're waiting for her to come back on. We're running a couple of minutes late, David. You'll be on shortly. I'm glad, Eliseo, that you have come on to and that's a great point. A lot of people, I'm glad you called and mentioned that because I would have probably forgotten, but I did want to address that. One of the reasons that I undertook to start doing judicial surveys is because a lot of people are totally not familiarized, nor do they show a lot of interest in that part of the ballot when it comes to judicial candidates. And it's so important for the reasons that I just said a little bit ago. So, Eliseo, you're on. Clementine, let me get her back on. She fell off. Do you have any questions for her? Any comments?
I do have a question. You want me to ask it now?
Sure. You're on live. And yes, she's hearing you.
Fantastic. Like I said before, thank you for bringing this out because it is so important for me to make my vote be knowledgeable. One of the things that I've noticed is I've been as an interpreter in the court, trying to help families through the process, is that some of the judges that they go before, and I'm not talking about criminal, like, felonies. I'm talking about misdemeanors and just civil things. They, when the person there is unable to speak English and they have to bring a translator in, usually they get put to the end of the day. And when they get brought up, it feels like they're not treated justly, like if they were paying in the court's side. And the family, the person there, becomes so stressed out, even more so than what they should. What will you do? What can you do to be able to alleviate this situation?
Thanks for calling in, Alicia. I'm going to let her answer. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep. Cece, so
Yeah,
I don't know.
I unfortunately, I'm having a lot of technical difficulties, and I had a hard time hearing. But I think
Okay,
he
so
said,
I'll go
how
ahead.
do
Let me
you-
see if I could.
yeah,
If I could.
Can you, rephrase
So
the
he's
question?
just basically saying that sometimes he comes in to assist people
Right.
with interpretation, and he feels like that for those persons that need a translation, sometimes they kind of the court puts them at the end of the docket. And then when
Yeah.
they get there, it feels he doesn't have any concrete objective like that there's something wrong, but that it feels like that. I think that they're it's bothersome. I think this is what he said. Did you get the that's kind of the gist, I think, of his question. Like they feel like they're not being treated justly. Yes, Getulio? Did I hear that
Yes.
correctly?
And what would Judge Condi do?
Right.
Should she be elected to the bench? How would she alleviate that issue? Those disparities, especially with people whose language is first language is in English.
Or the perception. Let's not call it an
Right.
issue. He said it felt that way.
Right.
He's not, yeah.
Sometimes judges like to get cases that can be handled quickly out of the courtroom, and sometimes interpreter cases take longer because of because they have to interpret, and it just takes longer. So I don't necessarily think that there's any discrimination. Of course, I don't know about the specifics that the caller was talking about, but I know that there have been times when a judge wants to handle cases quickly just to kind of clear out the courtroom, because lengthier proceedings will take more time, and they don't want to keep other people waiting if they can handle those cases quickly. If that's the case, again, I can't speak for any individual judge, then they should really say that. They should tell people that we're going to handle quick cases first, and then we'll do the interpreter case last, just so people understand why it's being handled in that fashion. And not for people to feel that they're being discriminated against because they don't speak English and they have to have an interpreter. So, I think communication is key here. You have to let people know why you're doing something the way that you're doing it, so that you don't have that perception that you're not being fair to them. And that's so important. And I know that, it's not perfect. The judge is sometimes stressed like, anybody else in a courtroom. Maybe they started their day late. They didn't have their coffee. I don't know. There's all days that we don't have that we perform at our best. But I assure you that I will do my best on every day to treat everybody fairly and to explain the process of what's going on in the courtroom. Because a lot of people, especially in county court, they are unrepresented. They have never been in a courtroom before. They are shaking. I stand next to people that have actually passed out because they were so nervous. I get it. I understand. And it's important for the judge to kind of calm the courtroom down, take the temperature down, explain the procedures of the courtroom so that people feel comfortable when they go up and stand before that judge and state what their case is, what their mitigation is, whatever it is they want to speak about. So that's what I would do, is I would explain to people, this is the process, so no one feels that they're being discriminated against for any particular reason.
You know what? Not to take away from what Eliseo Santana, he's actually run for sheriff, and he's very politically engaged. I like him a lot. We're friends. Not to take away from what his experience has been, but my experience is when I'm primarily in criminal court, the judges that I'm in front of tend to take the interpreter cases first because they understand that those interpreters need to be in other courtrooms. And so that's been my experience. Not that they're put last, but actually like that they're bumped in front of other people just to get them out of the courtroom because they understand that they need to be somewhere else. But again, I think I've known Cece for a very long time, and I have a very good gauge, and I think she's going to be a wonderful. I don't think I'm going to personally say that I vouch for her. I don't think that if she is elected to the bench, I don't think that I'll ever get a feedback that, wow, she went rogue on the bench, she got robitis, da 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 da. So I personally endorse you. And David is still waiting. David, it went a little bit over. You're gonna get the same amount of time that CC got to address the electorate. Do you want to say anything to the voters? I want you to give your information online so that they can go in and read about you. And I'll go ahead and I'll post that so that the voters can go and read more about you. Is there a website URL that you can give me? Okay, she froze again. So here we go. Let's add. Okay.
I'm so sorry. And I'm glad.
Hey, I know what I got to do now to get you back on when you freeze. So what do you have a website that the voters can go
say to the voters? Yeah.
More about you. What is that?
Well, I'd like them to know that at 30 years as a lawyer, I feel that I am the most experienced candidate in this race by far. And I do have the temperament and I have the knowledge of the law that I think sets me apart from my my opponent in this race. The practice of law, it's called the practice of law for a reason, and it takes many years to master it. It takes many years to know the law, know the evidence code. And I think experience is the most important thing that a judge can have. And I can tell you that, after 30 years, my demeanor is not going to change on the bench. Sometimes when people are younger and they get on the bench and their demeanor changes over the years. But I can tell you after 30 years, the demeanor that Haiti, is the demeanor that I'm going to have on the bench. And the knowledge of the law, I think that at this point in my career, I've mastered that. And I think that I would be a very fair jurist, and I would appreciate people looking at my credentials, all of the awards I've won. I'm AV preeminent lawyer, and I would hope that they would vote for me.
Do you have so is the Facebook page, is that where they should go to visit to know more about you?
My Facebook page, and then there's a link to the website from the Facebook page. And on that website, you can look at all of my credentials, all of my awards, my degrees, my experience, my volunteer work that I do in the community, that I have done and I continue to do.
I don't
And that's
see
where they'll learn about me. It
where-
should be
Where's the website?
up. I think it's over on the left. Well, my left. There should be a link to the website.
Do you know the URL?
Right there. Yeah. See, it
Is
said
it here?
CC Conde.
Under
yes.
CC Conde, is that it?
Yeah, that should be it. Let me put my glasses on just to make sure. But
yeah, I don't see it.
let me see. Oh, I thought it was on there. I apologize.
Do
I
you
can
have
certainly
the
give it.
URL? Yeah, what is it? What is it?
Yeah, I have it.
But this is the Facebook page, Clementine
yes.
Conde, and you have a
Right.
great.
I think if you
little
click
logo.
on learn more, it might be on there. So
Okay, gotcha. Hold on. Let's go.
yeah, click on learn more.
There it is.
You see it? Okay.
Yes, I do. So this
Okay.
is okay. So it's Conde for judge.
Yes, Conde for judge, right?
Okay, so let me go ahead and put that.
It's
Conde
pretty easy to
for-
find.
Is it? Let me see here. Okay. For judge. I can't. Is that correct? Conde for judge? Let me see. I got to take this off. I'm going to stop the share.
It's condeforjudge.com.
So it's
That's
there.
it.
That's right. So there it is on the bottom.
Yep.
Conde for judge.
Condeforjudge.com.
Okay, there it is. So if you want to learn more about her
correct.
candidacy, you can go to condeforjudge.com. And when's the election day or the day to go out to vote?
It is August 23rd. So I hope everybody will show up to the polls. It's a primary, so let's all show up to the polls and vote, because I always tell people, don't complain about the judge you just went before for your speeding ticket if you didn't vote.
Right. For sure.
That's right.
Anything else that you have?
No, that's it. Thank you for your time, Ms. Conde.
Thank you. I really appreciate you hearing me this morning.
I can't vote in Pasco, but I would urge everyone that can, that knows me, and not know me, to go out and vote for Clementine CC. I don't know why Candy's name keeps coming up in my head.
That's okay.
Clementine CC. I always call you CC, and I kind of feel a little bit, should I be using CC and be like a little bit more relaxed? But go out and vote for CC. She's gonna make a wonderful judge if she's elected. I believe that fully, and I know that to be true. All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day. And we're going to bring on David now.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. So, hi. Good morning, David.
Good morning, guys. How are we doing?
Morning.
Good. We're doing good. I'm going to let Getulio lead this interview.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thanks for that, Haiti. So I'm going to use a different question. Just to get an idea of your character, Mr. Moran.
Let him introduce himself a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Go, David.
Certainly. Again, my name is David Moran. I'm an assistant public defender. I've been practicing law almost nearly 18 years, 14 and a half of that as an assistant public defender. I did practice 3 years in private practice, kind of early on in my career after starting at the public defender's office, where I worked with Ms. Oropesa. And in fact, I worked against one of my fellow candidates running for judge. And I also, grew up here in St. Petersburg, not born and raised, but my father was in the military. So both parents from St. Petersburg. I was born at Fort Bragg. So my father is military, and went to Florida State, law school up in Delaware. But I knew that Pinellas County and St. Petersburg is where I wanted to come back and practice. And so we did that. And I'm board certified in criminal trial law. So I feel that with my experience and my community service, which I know we'll get into, as well as my compassion and my demeanor, I will make the perfect judge for Group 1 and going forward.
Okay, give me a second because I'm putting your URL here on the comment section. And Chris Parker, good morning. He's a big supporter of yours. I know Chris is a great guy. So it's votemoran4judge.com. That's David's URL. Is that correct, David? I just want to make sure.
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay, great. So and yep, I do know David because we did work together in the public defender's office. And so David, go ahead, Hetudo. You wanted to ask him a question about character.
All right. So what injustices, throughout your career in or outside the courtroom have you personally witnessed, and what was your response to those injustices or those events?
Certainly. I think having watched a little bit of Ms. Conde's interview, and you guys talked about obviously the survey, and I've seen judges their demeanors at times get out of hand. Maybe again they were just having a bad day, because I have also seen vast respect or change for some of those judges. Maybe it was the survey, but in pre-survey days, I did see a lot of the condescending attitudes, talking down to people. One time in particular, I did have a client, because I was representing the juvenile direct files, and in Pinellas County, and the majority of my clients were young Black males, and we had a dispositional officer or juvenile probation officer come in and speak on behalf of the client, who was also a Black male, who now is a teacher with Pinellas County Schools. And the judge said to this gentleman, you speak very eloquently, as if she was surprised. And to me, that, a lot of those undertones of, whether it's the implicit bias training that judge needs, or, just maybe reading the book, so you want to talk about race. But it was just very shocking that, in the, we are now over 20 years into the 21st century, that a judge is still talking like that and having those undertones. So for me, I just made sure, I always make sure I'm watching my words on how I'm talking with people, whether it's the same race, different race, different cultures. I've represented a vast variety of people that have come into our justice system, whether it was in private practice or here as a public defender. So for me, I'm going to be definitely socially aware. I'm always, when our, whether it was the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, which I'm on the diversity membership committee, we've had seminars on this very topic. So I'm always engaged in making sure that I am socially aware as to, and how people want to be called, whether it's in the LGBTQIA community, all the proper pronouns. And that was another thing too. I had a client who, a trans female, which is a young male transitioning to become a female. And I always had to correct the judge when she would look at me, and I would say, yes, judge, she is present, or she would like to do this. And of course, the judge thinks she's looking at a male, but trying to help that judge understand that, what's going on.
And you know what? I'm a member of Pactal, and David, I can say, me and David sometimes kind of like have had butted heads, but I have to say that David has done a phenomenal job of leading Pactal. He has. Amazing, very engaged, not lazy at all. Just he's been exceptional as a leader of Pactal. So do you want to ask anything else? I wanted to give you the ability to kind of take the lead, Getulio. I know that's hard for me, but go ahead. Yeah. That was a great question. Getulio. Getulio's getting really up to speed with Canon 7 and kind of understanding what the limitations are. He was kind of yesterday telling me, my word, what could they ask? But they are limited. And I just wanted the public to understand that they're not trying to be evasive and not answer, but that they are limited. Before you ask the next question, Tulio, David, I had an experience in Hernando County when I went in as a lawyer. This was maybe 3-4 years ago. And the judge, I was threatened with being held in contempt of court. It started out bad. I walked in through the past the gallery inside to the area where the attorneys are, and as I walked through the doors to go in there to sign up to be on the list to be called, the judge told me, "Excuse me, ma'am, who are you? Like, what do you?" And then I said, "Well, she said, "Are you an interpreter?" And that to me was like, wow, I could be an interpreter, and I was dressed professionally as a lawyer. And she questioned whether why are you passing into this area, and are you an interpreter, as if I couldn't be a lawyer.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that and then from there it went downhill because I was treated a certain way. I actually got it was so impactful to me what I was experiencing. And I've been practicing law now for over 20 years. So that happened just some years ago. And it went downhill right after that initial encounter. And then I was threatened with being held in contempt. I do have the digital audio of that experience that I drove back out to Hernando to get. I've decided whether to play that or not online, because what Getulio asked as his question, what injustices have you seen? That was a great answer, David, because that happens in our system. Some people think that doesn't happen, but it does, and even to us lawyers. So
Right.
what's your next question, Getulio?
Okay, so if you were to serve on the bench, if you observed the party in the courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective attorney, how would you handle that situation?
That's a great question, Getulio.
Yeah. Well, I truly believe, in professionalism, and overall in professionalism, it's not just, saying yes, sir, yes, ma'am, or being, just respectful to each other, but it's also with, work ethic, and that's why, and some of the judges I've come across, and now pretty much it's a good standard across our current bench, that they are very mindful and very observant of how people are being represented. And we have a local, with the Florida Bar, local attorneys that sit on the kind of like the pre-grievance committee that we can refer people to for the guidance before it gets to that point of filing bar complaints. I would personally approach that, ask that attorney to approach, if they want to, and even with other counsel present, but particularly with that individual attorney, not discussing about their case, but just discussing, whether or not. I think too often we don't ask people what's really going on. We just assume, and I understand that, people will have a bad day. We always say that in criminal court, it's the general term, not one I really like, but what I've heard is, it's bad people on their best behavior. But at the same time, like Ms. Conde mentioned earlier, sometimes you're running late, you're stressed. I understand that, particularly with attorneys, they are private attorneys, having to go courtroom to courtroom to courtroom sometimes in one given morning. It may appear that they just are being poorly represented, but I would certainly listen to both parties as to what's really going on in that relationship. And maybe there's, just some misinterpretations as to what's going on in the case. But if it becomes a pattern, I think it's one that the bench, particularly in our fellow bar, has the duty to figure out what's going on and get that person the right guidance and help, so that we don't see all of a sudden, a very good attorney, unfortunately being, disbarred, and then hundreds of clients just left out there to dry.
not only that, but what you said, David, is correct. Maybe that attorney has something that you don't know about that's affecting something that you're observing, but generally is not the case. So when you say pattern, I was in court this week. I was not only in court for my cases, but I had colleagues who asked me, "Can you stand in?" I was like jumping from courtroom to courtroom, and it was very stressful. And then sometimes you have you have a lot of cases at the same time in different courtrooms, and you have to step outside to then Zoom because for a case that you have in another county, and it is stressful. So that might not be indicative that the attorney is not being doing what they're supposed to do professionally to properly represent. It's just there might be a reason other than something awry.
Right.
So I like your answer into not jumping the gun and saying, "Oh, so sometimes look, this is an observation that I've made. Sometimes judges understand those difficulties with private solo practitioners or just private practitioners with offices that have more than one attorney, where they could be double booked or something's happening, and they decide, I'm not going to issue a warrant. I'm going to reset this because something may be wrong that is not the fault of the attorney." So, and then there are some judges that do issue a warrant, even though they know that the person's represented by an attorney that they know. And so, but talk about mental health. Sometimes we hear about the Florida bar talking about suicides, which lawyers, it's a high rate of suicides, substance abuse, because it's a very stressful job.
Mm-hmm.
And then, your response in saying, oh, Chris Parker has a question. I'm going to post it now, Chris. Give me 1 second. It's so stressful. The fact that you're saying, you know what, before just making a conclusion that this is an attorney that's not doing what they're supposed to do professionally to represent a client, I'm going to see what's going on. There might be a personal issue with their family or personally and we have to try to see if we can help the attorney, because it just might be an out of character situation. So I like that answer. And let's go ahead and post Chris Parker's question. Would you be amenable to attorneys using Zoom for non-evidentiary hearing? I think that's a great question. I have seen post the pandemic now where everything's open, where some judges have decided to keep Zoom in Hillsborough and in Pinellas, and it's wonderful for non-evidentiary hearings. What is your response to that, David?
Yeah, and certainly let me just touch on the fact that, why I feel that I'm the best candidate in my group as well, because, I was on the ground floor when the pandemic hit. I was trying to manage my caseload, my colleagues, the judges. We were all in this new era trying to figure it out. I had never heard of Zoom prior to March of 2020 because, in the government world, we're not using that technology as much as the private world was for, out-of-state depositions or even international depositions. But learning how it was working, as I, as a member of, I think at that time I was the secretary of Pactal. We tried keeping up a list of all the judges that were going to be using it, how they were going to use it. We did try to have some uniformity, like the other circuits were putting it on the circuit websites that litigants and clients or that were going to court would just know, okay, I'm in front of Judge Jones, and here's Judge Jones's link. So for the quick non-evidentiary hearings that whether and there is a properly filed waiver of appearance for the litigant or the defendant, yes, I'm amenable to that, as long as the technology is available to us, whichever platform it's going to be. I'm amenable to using it because I've seen that it is particularly whether it's for the defendant having to come to court, particularly in county court, if we're not doing long resets like sometimes in circuit court, for someone to keep coming back to court every 2 to 3 weeks on something where And then there are attorneys coming in as well. It's taking up too much time on the docket for everyone trying to running around and waiting. But if that attorney can be from their office, preferably, not driving around 275, I'm amenable to it.
Thank you for that, because you know what, this week when I was jumping from courtroom to courtroom, I had to step out to Zoom into Judge Camino's courtroom, right? Before Zoom, I would have had to either get coverage or wrap up being in Pinellas 49th Street quickly to then drive off to North County. So I think that that's a plus for judges that are currently serving or those who wish to serve, for that to be an option for non-evidentiary hearings. Thanks, Chris, for asking that question. That's a very important question that I would have forgotten. Chetulio, we have some time. We're going to stay on with David for a bit. If you want to interact with David, what group are you running in again? Group 1. There you have it. He's running in Group 1 in Pinellas.
Yep, it's John Carballo, who's retiring. So after
okay. John was my supervisor when I started as a baby attorney there in I started at the PD's office in 2001, and I went into private practice in 2006. So and I was a year before that at the PD's office in Hillsborough for a year, and then I went over the bridge and started with working for Bob Dillinger, and then some years after that you came.
I started in 2005.
Okay, so 4 years later.
Yep. So we were there for about a good year or so before you left, and then obviously, and your mom was there as well.
She was a legal secretary. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And then so from 2005 to 2008, pretty much 3 years even though we weren't bound by those 3-year contracts like our colleagues across the aisle or even in Hillsborough, we felt. Myself and attorney Rocky Rinker felt it was a good time to go test our feet in the waters of private practice. So we did that for about a year. We had our little firm called Rinker Moran right here in St. Petersburg in the Grand Central District before it was the Hollywood of St. Pete. And we tried that for about a year. I was more the lawyer, not the business person. So at the time, we thought it was best to maybe just go our separate ways. And I did try going back to the PD's office. But at that time, I think Mr. Dillinger just didn't have a spot available. So I had a family friend, attorney Keith Ringelspaugh, that kind of had an idea of maybe bringing me in. I would run my own practice, but also get cases from him because he's doing landlord-tenant and other real estate litigation, but he was kind of getting tired of going to court. So he figured he could teach me some of that stuff and maybe eventually take over his practice, officially join his practice and then take it over. We tried that. I learned a lot. But my wife and I, we had our son Brady, who's now 13. So it's, and that was all during the recession time. We were living in Hillsborough, but I still wanted to practice here in Pinellas. So after 2 years of doing that, and also just really missing doing trial work, as you know, as a private practitioner, it's few and far between to be paid well for a trial, or even have a case that would go to trial. So my calling was to be a public defender, public servant. So in 2011, I did make that phone call, was able to get back. I went back I actually started up in our Dade City office, which was kind of a good fresh start because it wasn't like going back to the big campus and, being compared to my old younger self or anything. It was a chance to be a new David, honing my skills with up there. The volume of cases was much higher because of the, I think it was only at the time 2 county judges and 1 circuit judge. So then I started with Judge Sustek, who retired a few years ago, Judge Bob Cole, who retired a good while back and unfortunately has passed. And then I was in front of Judge Susan Barthel, and then Judge Siracusa for a short bit before I came back down here in 2013 at the CJC.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, you were saying. I'm sorry.
oh, and so through that time, I had the fortunate experience of, and also being in Dade City, I was able to work on some of the murder cases because when you only have 8 lawyers and you got people that have good trial experience, you're going to get those cases instead of having 40 or 50 people fighting for those to get that experience. And so there was, I was able to go back and forth even when cases, either we got one overturned, got a new trial, and we ended up, that young man got acquitted. So I've got the experience of on the appellate level as well as the trial court level of doing things.
So, and it seems like you have experience in both criminal and civil.
Yes. In fact, I did some small claims bench trials, learning the landlord-tenant stuff. I've had a few of those trials go, bench trials, one before when Judge Hessinger was on the civil bench and Judge Vaccaro. Civil rules of procedure, I learned a lot during that time of, creating interrogatories, answering interrogatories, filing those pleadings. And so, yeah, if they do decide to put me in the civil bench, I'm prepared just as much to. I'll need some brushing up, but it's familiar territory for me.
Now that you mentioned Judge Vaccaro, I wanted to make a mention of her. Cece mentioned Judge Vaccaro, and this week I told her, "Look, I'm not trying to brown nose or anything, but I wanted to tell her because it's good not only to be critical of judges that we perceive, you're lacking in demeanor or this, that, the other, but it's good to also give good feedback to the good judges." And I told her this week, you're a good judge. And she actually is. And the reason why I said that to her, because if you're ever in her courtroom and you see her as a judge engaging with the defendants that come before her, it's amazing. The time that she takes to review everything to help them. You got to go here. You got to pay this. We'll do this. She takes her time to do that. And listen, sometimes you're sitting there and you're like, come on, I got to go. I got to go to the next courtroom. But she takes all the time necessary to make sure this person understands what they have to do to be on track.
Yeah.
Personally, and as a person, a defendant in her courtroom, it's almost like she takes great pains to make sure, look, this is what you got to do to come out from under the thumb of this case.
Yeah. I think it's very important because, particularly in county court, whether it's traffic or county criminal, it's a lot of times, it's the first time those people have ever been in court for something, whether they're, 18 years old or, 60, they find themselves in new territory and it's scary. They're under the threat of possibly going to jail should they not follow those guidelines. And I think it is incumbent upon us judges to be mindful of that and to, again, like you said with Judge Vaccaro, to really carefully explain things so that people will understand it and so that they do know, because as we know here in Florida, your license can get suspended for not paying the fines. And then you're getting caught in a system of, collections and trying to get out of collections and then paying all the reinstatement fees. But if people have those clear instructions and they know where they have to go and how to, like you said, get from appended from the system, it's a win-win if we are giving clear directions in our orders or in just talking to someone right there in court so that they know that when they leave, they should be clear as to, okay, I go to the second floor, I start paying my fines, or if I get a payment plan, I've got to go check into probation, or now I can, or you're releasing somebody on supervised ROR, you remind them, you're going to go to room 1930. You don't just say
she does that great. She does.
Somebody will tell them, or
Yeah. No. She does great. She does that. You got to go to the second floor. You got to do this, and then you got to go over just to make sure they're okay, so that they don't miss a beat.
Yeah.
So she does that wonderfully. And I just caught myself with a little bit of a dissonance. I'm here saying, oh, because people that go in front of the judge, they want to be fully heard and be thorough, and not for the judge to just like kind of like wanted to get things done quickly. But see, I'm there sitting as a private attorney, and I have to be somewhere else, and I'm under the stress of that, and I'm like, hurry up. See,
Oh, it happens.
right. Well, that's why, the private attorneys and attorneys, they need to, for the courts to understand that about us too. We're under stress. Stress kills. Stress isn't just, oh, I'm stressed. Stress
Right.
physically, mentally does harm us. And then we can't have, the system say, oh, we understand that attorneys are under stress and they're committing suicide and they have substance abuse. But that's stress that impacts us. I have to be here. I have to be there. And what you just mentioned, you left the PD's office and it's wonderful. Ideally, sometimes the pay is, is an issue that some attorneys can stick around for a long time because of the pay that they get. Thankfully, I heard that this year they got a bump in monies to be able to pay their attorneys, both the public defenders and the state attorneys. But you said you left momentarily and then you wanted to come back because you don't want to deal with the business administration of running a private practice, right? That creates more of a stress.
Right.
So
No, I certainly understand that.
right, exactly. So anyways, good conversation on that point. Getulio, I wrested control from you. I'm a little bit of a control freak. I said that I would let you take the lead, and then we're back to you. You have a question. You texted me, and I'm gonna give the same amount of time to David that Cece got. So go ahead and ask your question. You're muted.
Okay, so last question for me. Should be straightforward. What was your greatest accomplishment, or your proudest accomplishment, I should say, in your legal career?
I would say for me, it was the acquittal of this young man by the name of, well, I won't use his name, but
that was quick thinking. That was quick thinking.
But even in the past, he hasn't let me use his name. I mean, he was in the paper, but if somebody wants to Google that, they can find it. But, he was direct filed as a 14-year-old charged with first-degree murder. There was a robbery up in Dade City. And then a shooting. And when I took over the case and got on the case, it was right before his 15th birthday. So by the time I saw him joining the Dade City office, he was already 16. And, we eventually went to trial by the time he was 17. We did lose the first time at trial, but even with the video confession that we weren't able to keep out, there was a lot of other evidence that we worked on getting in. The judge at the time kept it out, but we proffered it. So again, I knew exactly what, appellate avenues we were going to have to preserve the record. And we did a fine job of that. And even with that video, we kept the jury out for 10 hours. But eventually they found him guilty. We had some other issues afterwards. It was some of the jurors were commenting back when you could see the old comments of like the St. Pete Times, the Tampa Tribune, when they were separate papers. And we felt, well, maybe, other people were doing research in the jury room. And eventually one woman wrote the judge. She didn't sign it. So, of course, the judge was, this could be the defendant's grandmother. Who knows? Well, then she called finally and said, hey, Judge, I wrote you a letter. My name is so-and-so. I was a juror on that case. So we had, the experience of re-interviewing the jury and bringing them in. Ultimately, the judge found that there was no jury tampering or outside, knowledge or investigations through the internet or what have you. But then he went to the, second DCA. And the second DCA overturned it based on that evidence that the judge kept out. So we went back in 2019, different judge. I picked the jury. We were able to put on the evidence that we had. Fortunately, the witnesses that we wanted to call were still available and around. And this time around, it was 3 hours that the jury found him not guilty of first-degree murder. So, in between that time too, the Miller case came out. So at first, the only sentence for that young man was life, and then we had a resentencing as well. It was actually the first resentencing hearing in the Sixth Circuit that was held back when all that was starting. So the judge at that time sentenced him to the 40 years with a 25-year review. And then obviously on the overturn, he was acquitted. And since that time, he and I have kept in touch. We usually call each other around the anniversary of the acquittal, which was in March 1st of 2019. Or he called me during Christmas time to let me know he's doing well. He's moved over to the East Coast now. He's not, he was living with the grandparents because his mother was killed as a young child by his stepdad, and his biological father had been in and out of prison as well.
Okay, wow, 3-hour verdict on a first-degree murder. Good job, Getulio. So that's it. We're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna allow you a minute or so, David, to address the electorate. For those other candidates in these group races, if you'd like, you can come on. I'm gonna be hopefully fair. If you'd like somebody else to come on here and ask you questions, I'm gonna vote for you, David. I just I'm in Pinellas, so and I'm gonna. But if the other candidates in the other races want to come on and allow the electorate to hear about you, I'm happy to allow you to come on this platform. If you'd like someone from your committee to come on, I'll act as producer behind the scenes to ask you questions, just to be fair, because fairness is a good thing. But go ahead. I'm going to give you a minute, David. Go ahead and address the electorate.
Okay. So again, I'm running for county judge group 1 because I am very service oriented. I am a public servant, and that's what a judge should be as well. Judge of the people. In addition to my legal successes and my experience in the courtroom, during law school, I was a big brother, big sister. I volunteered as a basketball coach at my alma mater here in Boca Ciega High School. I then became an assistant basketball and the head JV coach, working with those young men. I've been a lunch pal with Pinellas County Schools. I'm on the board of my family's foundation, which is the Selma Mastery Ovarian Cancer Foundation, which assists women that are financially unable to really survive that avenue of going through cancer treatments. So we provide them some comfort by helping them financially. I also have assisted recently with the Youth Development Initiative. I do keep Pinellas beautiful cleanups because I care about Pinellas County, whether it's the beaches, the neighborhoods, the streets. A clean street in a neighborhood goes a long way for people's mental health and knowing they live in a good environment and will care about themselves as well. And I think I've got the right demeanor and the compassion for everyone involved in the court system. I know how just about every person in that courtroom, how they work, because I've worked with them daily for over the past, particularly the past 12 years, day in, day out, getting back into the public defender's office, where it's the clerks, the bailiffs, the interpreters, the court reporters. So again, vote moranforjudge.com. We're on Facebook. The mail-in ballots, if you're doing that, will be going out soon. Otherwise, please vote by August 23rd. And thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, David. Do you want to say anything else before we go enjoy the rest of our Saturday, Getulio?
No, that's all for me. Thank you for the interview, Mr. Moran.
Thank you, Julio. Pleasure meeting you. And
likewise.
Okay. Haiti Oropesa with Florida You Judge, with Getulio Gonzalez Monetary. Everyone have a great rest of your Saturday. And go vote. Don't forget to go vote.
That's right.
And get registered if you're not.
Right. That too.
Thank you.